Yo, how's it going, folks? It's me again, your boy Tabo, and this is another lesson on SVG for the web. And today's lesson is going to be on filters. So today we're just going to cover two filters, and that is the drop shadow and the Gaussian blur filter. Okay, so let's just jump into it. Let's create our HTML file, our SVG canvas. Okie doke. So what we're gonna do now, in order to create our filters, we're gonna do them in between defs tags. So I'm gonna create two defs elements, and then in between there, this is where I'm gonna create my filters. Okay, so we'll define them in here. So I'll say filter, and then I'll give ID. I'll say blur. We're gonna start with our Gaussian blur filter, and then let's close this guy down. Say another filter. There we go. And so here in between, then we're going to create a Gaussian blur filter. So say FE Gaussian blur. Okay, so the values that we're going to give it are going to say standard deviation. So now what that is how big the blurring is going to be, like how far it's going to stretch from the original point. Because when we create the blur, at first without the deviation, it'll be the same size as the circle. So the more deviation you add, the more you see the blurring stretching outside of the circle, outside of the radius of the circle. So I will illustrate what that means. So for now, I will just say 0, so that there's pretty much nothing to see there. Okay, and then another thing that we're going to specify is the in. Now the in attribute, basically this is where you specify your source graphic. Source graphic is basically the element on which you will be applying the blur. Okay, so that's what source graphic is. So it just means that whatever element that you'll be using this filter on, that will be your source graphic, and then it will then create the blur based on that shape. Okay, so that's that for now. And so now what we're going to do next is create a rect. So I'll say rect, and I'll say x is equal to, then I'll put it as 600 margin, and then I'll say y is equal to 50, and then I'll give it a width of 200, and then a height of 200 as well, and then I'll give it a fill color of maroon, and then I will close this one. So we'll just duplicate this guy. Then over here, then I will add the filter. So I will say filter equals to URL, and then inside here we're gonna use our blur filter. Okay, so now we're gonna open this on our favorite browser and let's check out what it looks like. Okay, there we go. We've got one rect. The reason why we've got just one rect is because they're stacked up on top of each other. So what I need to do is move this one. Okay, there we go. So we've got our two rects. Okay, so now that we have our rects, we can't actually see any difference. It's because I set the standard deviation to 0, so there isn't any blurring on any of them. So now I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna go to our filter, and then here in standard deviation, then I'm gonna set it to 5. When I do that, okay, so now you can see the blurring. Okay, so this is very nicely blurred, but it seems like this also has a limitation, because the further you go, then there's a square which is defined over here. Haven't quite figured out how to fix that one, but when I do, I will let you know. So this is basically how a blur filter works. So I'm going to set it back to 5. And now we're going to create a drop shadow. Okay. So now drop shadow isn't also all that different. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just change these. I'll just make that shadow. And then over here, of course, this is going to be FE drop shadow. I'm going to change that. And then here we won't be needing the in attribute, so we're going to remove that, but the standard deviation remains, and it works similar to a Gaussian blur. So now what I'm going to do is then I'm going to add dx. Now dx is basically how you translate your shadow. So this is how it runs across the horizontal line, your x coordinate. So I'm gonna make the 0 for now, and then we've got dy, which is your y coordinate running vertically, and we're gonna set that also to 0. And we've got another option called flood color. Now basically what flood color is the color of your shadow. Okay, so you can also give your shadow a color that you prefer. So I'm gonna give it color gray. So I want it to be nice and gray, and so we're gonna leave it like that. And here at the bottom I'm gonna create then a circle. Okay, I will give the circle, say x is equal to, say, 800. Let's try that. And now say y is equal to 450. Okay, sorry, it's a circle, so it's cx, cy, and then I will give it a radius of 100. Okay, I will also fill it with color, I'll say cyan, and then we will close it. Then I'll duplicate it, and then here I will then add my filter. I'll say filter equals to, say, URL, and then we'll say shadow. Okay, so now we're gonna have a look at what that looks like. I'll set it to 0. Okay, so for now it's not gonna look like much. There we go, we've got our circle, but once again they're still stacked on top of each other. So I'm gonna make this one, say 1000, then that one will be 700. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got these two circles. Okay, they don't look also all that different, but all I have to do is then activate the deviation. So it's the standard deviation 5. So that's what we get. Now here we've got these extra values that we can use, and with these then you can also, I can move it 5 units to the right, and then I'll say 3 units down, and this is what you get. So now you see this shadow is moving, and if I want I can give it a color. I can say red if I want to. I can give it a red shadow, or I can give it black. Well, you can give it whatever color you want. So this is what you can do with this. You can create all kinds of like cool effect. You can create a moon like effect if you want, where you can just kind of give the circle a texture of a moon, or maybe add a gradient, but like a very simple flat kind of shading, and then use another like a blur, or you can use a shadow and then just give it a different color, and then add the deviation, like make it 7 or so, and then you have what may seem to be like a glow. So you just add a color like white, and then it seems like a bloom that is glowing. So you can just kind of do all kinds of cool things with it. It's just all up to your imagination, but this is pretty cool stuff. What makes it extra cool is that it's programmable. So all of this stuff you can make it interactive if you want to. So yeah, this is pretty awesome. So for this lesson, I just wanted to cover just these 2 filters, and so in the next lesson we'll cover the rest of the filters. We have quite a few filters to cover, so yeah, that should be exciting. I mean, there are some pretty cool effects that you can create with this stuff, and I will share some of those with you. But for now, these are just the simple basic filters that you can apply. And so just play around, always mix and match everything, see how you can put things together in interesting ways. So till the next time, my brothers and sisters, love and peace. I'm out. If you thought this video was good and helpful, please press that like button. For any questions or input, just remember to leave a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe to my channel and I'll keep more stuff coming your way.